Hello, my name is Hope Taglich, and welcome to my Capstone presentation project. I'm filming this on my phone. It's a little bit low-tech because Quick Player wasn't working, so here we go. But before that, welcome to my teaching context. So, I am a 11th grade English teacher at the wonderful Bronx Studio School for Writers and Artists in Hunts Point, which is in the South Bronx. Unfortunately, this is the United States' poorest congressional district, but it is also a community with a lot of assets that I've kind of grown to value very deeply. So my school is an unzoned public school. It's a combined middle and high school. We work with and share a building with Casita Maria, which is the oldest Hispanic community-centered organization in the United States. Most of our students come from Hunts Point, which is, again, in the South Bronx, but we welcome students from a variety of different parts of the Bronx and even different boroughs. We have a couple from Brooklyn and Queens. Most of our students remain at BISWA from 6th to 12th grade because it's a combined middle and high school. And this kind of like helps build a sense of school community because typically we have a kid from 6th grade to when they graduate. And because of our partnership with the Casita Maria organization, as can be evidenced in the name too, we have a lot of writers and we have a lot of artists. So 91% of our students qualify for a free or reduced lunch. We also have free breakfast for students that arrive early. Our students are mostly Hispanic from Puerto Rican and Dominican backgrounds. Those are the two most common. We also have a fair number of West Indian, African American, African, and Yemeni students. This is the building. You can't see it from here, but there's a mural that's really cool. So it's like a Bobby Capo mural. The kids made it. But my research question was, how can goal setting and taking specific actions towards fulfilling those goals and fulfilling personal self-improvement and community service goals improve the internalizing behaviors of my adolescent male students in my 11th grade ELA class? So, what compelled me to choose this research question was, in my baseline SEL data, I noticed a distinct difference between adolescent boys and adolescent girls in regards to various markers of internalizing behaviors. So like self-esteem, accountability, resilience, knowing your strengths and weaknesses and using them and leveraging them. But also stuff like the ability to talk about your feelings. Girls seem to discuss their challenges more with their support networks. Boys were more closed off. When I tried to implement empathy interviews too, I took that into account. And this observation was reinforced by our school counselor, Ms. Lisa Rodriguez. So I wanted to sort of help build the gap, or sort of do something to address the gap. So I thought that this action research project could help build students' internalizing behaviors and that this would help with academic pursuits, extracurriculars like sports and debate, and success outside of school. Next, we have the implications for instructional practice. So throughout my time working at BISWA, I've tried to cultivate a educational practice that maximizes student choice and agency. And so I wanted students to be able to pick their goals and be able to work towards them. Both picking what their community-oriented goal is and picking what their personal goal was. And I thought student choice was important. I mean, obviously because of all the research that has been favoring it. For example, there was a study I came across called Men in and Out of Treatment for Depression, which stated that depression statements who were able to make active choices in their treatment plans reported more progress. Now, this is a little different from what I was doing because I'm not a mental health practitioner. I was trying to help social emotional outcomes in a school for students. But I wanted to see if those findings were replicable. And I wanted students to feel like they were active agents in the research process. So the effectiveness of choice-based approaches aligns with research like UDL research, which shows that student choice is beneficial for educational outcomes, like optimized choice and authenticity. So throughout the action research process, I conferenced extensively with our school social worker, Ms. Lisa. During the planning stage, I told her I had some difficulty connecting with male students compared to female students, particularly when I implemented my empathy interviews. And she said, I've experienced the same thing. It's still kind of an obstacle that I'm trying to get past. So I came up with this idea because I felt like I improved internalizing behaviors. Well, I felt like improved internalizing behaviors could help my students with various different outcomes, not just academically, as I list here, but also in other social-emotional domains and in student experience. I teach 11th grade too, so most of them are sort of building skills that will help them in the workplace and outside of high school, in college, you know. So I felt like building internalizing behaviors is deeply important. So my SEL data gave me the initial idea for this action research project. So 60% rate themselves poorly on markers like I'm comfortable with my identity and I can accept my own errors and accomplishments and use them both to grow. And I thought that that was something I would like to focus on because these are very relevant kind of parts to being an adult. And this gap was reinforced by my anecdotal data. Adolescent males were less likely to confide in friends about their mental health. They were more likely to shut down when faced with goals, particularly academic goals that seemed insurmountable. And I noticed that they were somewhat more likely to abandon an academic task that they started. So I came up with the idea to create a project-based learning concept after conducting a literature review, particularly with the data from men in and out of treatment for depression, which showed that men wanted to feel like active participants in the treatment process. This concluded that males preferred to go to mental health workshops, which I'm not doing. It's not a mental health workshop. It's a social emotional learning initiative that had actionable goals and explicit purposes and did not favor loose or unstructured approaches. So I got the idea, okay, maximize student choice, actionable goals. I want you to choose one community service goal and one personal goal and journal your progress towards that goal for 1 month. My approach was also reinforced by one source that said identifying, affirming, and building on male strengths, which advocated for a positive psychology, positive psychotherapy model, which specifically implements strengths instead of weaknesses. So essentially it advocated for young men to be maximize their assets as a way of approaching potential deficits. So another thing that helped inform the community service portion of this presentation and of this project was the long-term consequences of youth volunteering, which helped show that volunteering, when it was voluntary and chosen, helped increase internalizing behaviors among teenagers. So here's my methodology. I love project-based learning, so I did a project-based learning initiative as a research-based strategy. It was a combined journaling, goal-setting, community service project. Students chose one community service goal, and I didn't just want it to be like, oh, volunteer at a food bank, although that's very valid. I also wanted to choose goals that encourage students to be actively involved within their own communities. And this can extend to anything from volunteering at a food bank to helping with chores to going on grocery runs for your neighbors. And one personal goal. And again, I wanted this to engage student interest, so I wanted it to be as subjective and choice-based as possible. My students chose everything from I want to bench 135 to I want to write poetry every day. So my data sources included student journal entries, qualitative, SEL self-screeners, which were quantitative, and anecdotal observations, which are qualitative. So the students that participated in each round of the project reported a positive impact. However, this data is skewed because I relied on an entirely volunteer subgroup. So they demonstrated a higher level of internalizing behaviors to begin with. Here's some of the data. This relates to marker 1, which is I feel comfortable in social situations. We have marker 3. We have and this is further explained within my Capstone project. So one trend I noticed in students internalizing behaviors is one standard that was achieved a lot was students grew in their ability to accept their own errors and accomplishment and use them as a lever for growth. Here is a diagram of that. So here's a representative quote. One thing I'm proud of this week is how I was able to be there for my friend Celine. Antho is describing here how he is able to support his friend who went through a loss recently, and as well as being able to get an after-school job and work with children. And this has helped him recover from multiple obstacles in his life. He was a big fan of this project. This trend was reinforced further by other subjects, which is explored in the data. Here are some representative journal samples. So students who participated reported an increase in internalizing behaviors as a result of the goal setting and working to achieve those goals. Students engaged in more metacognitive processes about what got in the way of their goals, and they made adjustments. For example, Jean-Pierre woke up late and he was trying to do an early morning routine, so he wasn't on his phone for the hour before bed. So students kind of thought more critically about consequences and what their outcomes were and their behavior. So this resulted in several positive outcomes, ranging from increased attendance to improved academic performance. 80% of students who participated reported an increase in their internalizing behaviors. The exception is Lorenzo. However, the students who participated were more likely to rate themselves higher on average from baseline. So these results are imperfect due to aforementioned flaws in my methodology. But what does this make me want to do? This makes me want to do it again, but better. So my implications are, this indicates that setting service-based and personal goals may help students internalizing behaviors, but my methodology is not clear enough to establish a definitive link. So more progress and a more diverse sample size is needed. I want to do a project-based unit in my ELA class next year, so this will allow me to work with a wider, more diverse sample size, and it will also allow me to contrast how boys respond to it and how girls respond to it. Is it really a gendered thing, or is it a adolescent thing? So this shows that the goal-based approach favored in men in and out of treatment are for depression is transferable outside of a mental health context and into a social emotional learning in schools context. So it doesn't just apply to men seeking treatment for depression. Active involvement and tangible progress towards goals helps with general mental health and social emotional outcomes. So now, participating students have experience following through on a goal and carrying it to completion, which is a really cool process for them, and they really enjoyed it. Another thing that I want to address is that, again, because I focused on boys, there's obviously a gender bias. I wonder if the results are replicable among girls or among younger boys. I think doing this on 14-year-olds would be very different than doing this on 16 to 18-year-olds who are beginning to think about, who they are and what they want to do after high school and what their career goals are and what their college goals are. However, this is a small sample group and it might not show a general trend. So a larger, more diverse sample size is needed to show if there's a difference between students of different genders. So I feel like this has been valuable for my students who participated, but I just want more. I want to do it again. I want to do it better. I want to do it with a wider, more diverse sample size. And I've seen some progress. I want to see if that can happen again. I'm exhausted, but I want more data. Thank you, and have a nice rest of your night. Goodbye.